What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with Liberty Hill Comics, where I share my passion and over 40 years experience comic book collecting, investing, and conservation with you. Today, we're going to reveal the final grade we got from CGC on a very cool Silver Age comic book published by Marvel Comics. It's Marvel Tales number 2, and it includes the very first reprints of both Avengers number 1 and X-Men number 1. These comics were released in September of 1963, and this comic book was published in 1965, just 2 years later. This copy is the exceedingly rare UK price variant, with only one singular low-grade copy in the CGC Census at the time we submitted our copy. It also happens to be a square-bound comic book, so it needed to be treated just a little bit differently from a normal saddle-stitched comic. In today's video, we're going to review our journey with this comic and find out if we hit our goal of achieving the highest grade in the CGC Census, and we're also going to check in on our viewer survey to see how you all did on guessing the grade that we received. If that sounds like fun, stick around. In episode 1, we did an unboxing and I reviewed the history of Marvel Tales Annual as the first Marvel reprint series of the Silver Age. We talked about how this comic book is the very first reprinting of both Avengers number 1 and X-Men number 1, which were both printed in 1963, about 2 years before this comic book hit the newsstands. We discussed how UK price variants are first printings and how they are estimated to be 20 to 50 times more rare than their US counterparts, but often sell at a discounted price to US versions of the same comic book. I shared with you that my goal is to submit this comic book to CGC in hopes of having the highest graded copy in the census. Specifically, we want to see if we can accomplish this goal on a modest budget with some good old-fashioned diligence and elbow grease. In episode 2, we performed a dry cleaning on this square-bound comic book and found several foreign substances on the cover, as well as some good old-fashioned soiling and mild staining. After dry cleaning, it went into my humidity chamber where it sat for 24 hours at 98% relative humidity. In episode 3, I showed you the method I use to press square-bound comic books so that you don't crush the spine or get the staples tearing through the cover. It involves building up the stack so that the body of the book is thicker than the spine to protect the spine and staple area during the press. This method is simple and very effective, so if you're struggling with pressing square-bound comic books, I suggest you give it a try. We also looked at the final results of our work on the comic before submission in episode 3. Here are the before and after images of the front cover in flat lighting. I think there is a subtle difference, but the comic is cleaner, brighter, and presents better after our work. On the back cover, flat lighting shows a bit more of an improvement, owing to all of the white area on the back cover that shows just how much soiling we removed. This comic is clearly cleaner and brighter than when we started. But it's not until we use incident light that the real impact of our clean and press becomes apparent. On the back cover here, you can see that we removed a considerable amount of wrinkles and flattened some creases while preserving the spine and the paper over the staples. Although we didn't repair the rip at the top right edge of the back cover, the press made it less noticeable as well. But the real money shot for me is the front cover in incident light. Here you can see that the entire presentation of the book changed from a tired, disposable form of entertainment to something that resembles the comic book as it was originally manufactured. Although this comic book has some defects that will hold it back from ever grading higher than a mid-grade, we've made it all it can be and breathed some new life into the pages. I've created a playlist for this series, so click on the link if you missed any of the earlier episodes and want to check them out before viewing today's video. Before we reveal the final grade, let's see what you all thought the grade would be. We put a quiz on the Liberty Hill Comics community page over on YouTube, and I want to thank the 28 of you that participated in guessing the grade. We had a bit of an odd distribution of guesses, with a quarter of you thinking it would earn a 4.0, 29% of you thinking it would get a 4.5, even fewer of you, 14%, thinking it would earn a 5.0, and a plurality of you, 32%, thinking it would get a 5.5. As for me, I thought it would get either a 4.5 or a 5.0, which is why I centered the quiz around these two grades. Are you ready for the reveal? I'm quite pleased with the grade we received on this rare Silver Age comic book. It presents really well in the CGC holder, and as you can see, we received a 4.5 universal with a page designation of off-white to white. Congratulations to the 29% of you that correctly guessed this one would come back at a 4.5. CGC's grader's notes indicate multiple creases, the spine split at the bottom, and a stain on the right top of the front cover. While we could have addressed these defects with some conservation work, it would have jeopardized our universal grade, and our goal here was to top the CGC Universal Census on this book, not to get a conserved grade. So how'd we do on that goal? I'm happy to say we nailed it. Here you can see in the page for the grader's notes that CGC has imaged the book, and they have indicated that there are 0 copies in higher grade. They even have this little mountaintop with a flag on top icon and the words Top Pop to indicate that this book tops the entire CGC census population. How's that? Here you can see the full census with only 2 copies of Marvel Tales No. 2 UK edition. I only own a handful of books that top the CGC census. It's generally very difficult to do, so to purchase a raw copy, clean and press it, submit it to CGC, anticipate the outcome for months, and to finally get the census topping copy back, I'm really over the moon with this outcome. So, how did we do in terms of equity on this comic book? You may recall from episode 1 of this series that I paid £60 sterling plus shipping for this comic. At the then current conversion rate, I was out $101. As for the grading, I took advantage of CGC's Vintage Tier Submission Sale, which, stacked with my Elite CGC membership, meant I only paid $26 for grading and shipping to and from CGC all in. So my total costs associated with the purchase and grading of this comic are $127. What is the fair market value of this comic book? Well, that's really difficult to say. Firstly, it's super rare. There are only 2 copies in the CGC census. My copy hasn't sold, and Go Collect doesn't even list the UK price variant among its known variants for this comic. The only other copy in the census is a lowly 2.5, so even if we had sales data, it'd be difficult to extrapolate a value from, and I wasn't able to find any public transaction for that copy anyway. While these early reprints are gaining more popularity as the cost of owning the originals has gotten out of reach for many people, the reality is this comic book is so rare that it's worth whatever someone is willing to pay for it. But it's also true that this is not a comic book that collectors are fervently searching for, so demand is middling at best. Is there a potential buyer for this comic book that thinks it's as cool as I think it is and wants to own the highest in census? Or someone who wants to own slabbed copies of all 3 variants of this comic book, the US, Canadian, and UK prints, and must have this copy because there just aren't any others out there? If so, I think this comic is an easy double up in equity. Regardless, I'm really happy with the outcome. What do you think it's worth? Do you think this was a fun side quest for the channel? Or a stupid waste of time and money? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to learn more about comic book conservation, please check out our book of the same title, available soon on Amazon. Until next time, take care of one another.